Hi, and welcome to Serenity Now, a place for entrepreneurs to ask questions, learn, get connected, and be inspired. Join us as we talk about all things business and the search for the ever-elusive Serenity Now in both business and personal life.
Hey Candice, why should we listen to this episode today?
I think to bring normalcy to talking about mental health, you need to talk about mental health, and that's what we are doing today. So take a listen.
Mic drop. Hello and welcome to another episode of Serenity Now for Entrepreneurs, the podcast where we talk all things business. I'm your host today, Rita Kim, and today I've got several Serenity Sisters with me, and one of them is Candice. Hey Candice.
Hi Rita, glad to be here today.
Yeah, and then we've also got Peggy.
Hi everyone.
And today we're going to talk about a topic that kind of gets overlooked, but it affects us all, and it affects us all each and every single day. And it's the topic of mental health. And I'm going to throw it over to Peggy really quick, because she said something really interesting before we started, and I thought that we should start it off with that.
Well, first of all, I said that, we're not mental health professionals. We're just entrepreneurs who have in our own lives run into some mental health issues, and we just wanted to honor Mental Health Month by having a discussion today. It's just going to be relating our own experiences as business people and human beings.
I really like that because you know what? Mental Health Month, the goal of Mental Health Month is to make discussing mental health an everyday thing. You have a cold, you don't have any problems discussing that with somebody or your mental health professional, but for some reason there's this stigma with mental health. And on the opposite end of that, mental illness, because Rita, you pointed out they're not necessarily the same thing. We're just going to have a conversation about our own experiences, and just like anybody would talk about having a cup of coffee or something. So,
yeah, I think that lays it out really well. So I guess I'll go into just the definition, because I think that would be good to clarify, and what is the difference between mental health and mental illness. Those are two separate things, but sometimes perhaps this is where the stigma comes in, ladies, from all these years before, where we never ever talked about it. 30 years ago, we never discussed this. 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, there was health and wellness programs, but even then you still said, okay, if I call someone, what does that mean? And are you going to tell my employer, or is my boss going to find out? And, those were still pieces of it, because I think there was both stigma. There was also the idea of us, we're not supposed to talk about it, or we're supposed to be strong no matter what and just deal with it. And then finally, the difference between what is mental health and what is mental illness. And so let's kind of break that down. So mental health is basically your overall state of well-being. So this is emotional, social, psychological aspects of our lives. And mental illness, on the other hand, is basically diagnosable or conditions that affect our thoughts or emotions or behaviors. Yeah, Candice, you're probably going to just explain that a little bit more, right?
No, I was going to say, so what I'm hearing then is mental health is whether your mental state is in a good state or a bad state. It just is. It's your health. It's like, right. It's whether you're in good physical health or not, right? And in illness, just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you have a mental illness. You're just having a bad mental health day. So
correct. So like mental health, it could be burnout. It could be stress. It could be, grief. It could be any of those things that we're talking about. And that has nothing to do with a mental illness. And I think that perhaps if we had defined that a little bit better years back, maybe it would have helped with some of the discussions.
There was a lot of stigma attached to it, I think. And I think the more we talk about it, the less there'll be stigma attached to it. So I think this discussion is important, and I think it affects a lot of Canadians. You have statistics, Rita. I know you do, because you do all your research before we talk. So let us know what those are.
I have to do this because this is just part of who I am. Approximately 1 in 5 Canadians will personally experience a mental health problem or illness each year. By the age of 40, about half the population will have experienced a mental illness. And I don't know if those are totally real, guys, because has everyone reported in to whoever's collecting this data or stats? Just suffice it to say, this is important. This is real. And I guess that's why we're talking about it today.
So as entrepreneurs, how's it all affected us? I think that's where we need to go next, talk about our own little anxiety problems or whatever it is that we encounter, overwhelm being overwhelmed as an entrepreneur, I think, is a really common thing. And sometimes it's manageable and sometimes it's not. But it does impact our families and it does impact our coworkers or our employees. And what are our coping strategies? Rita likes naps.
I like to take naps, yes. If I don't take a nap, then I get a little antsy. That just mental shutdown, that nice, quiet, dark space, everything's gone, there's nothing around you, and whether I actually really sleep or not, it's just the whole idea of just kind of shutting down. That gives me such peace.
I need to find a place where I can totally not think about work. And I know as an entrepreneur, that's really something that a lot of people have a hard time shutting off from. But I seem to be very good at it. If I take myself out of the visual space of work, which is hard to do when you're working at home, if I get out of the visual space of work, I can remove myself. So you need to find what works for you, because if you can't turn off that brain to work when you're with family, it interferes and it hurts relationships and it hurts families. And I want to apologize to my children right now for my non-attentive times when I was trying to work out business problems.
Great, Peggy. I will join the apology to my family, to my husband. I do apologize. And my friends. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too. I'm on that bus too. I have to say that it's only been in the last, I think probably since they bring mental health, bring more awareness to it. Cause I'm always been the struggle through and just get it done type. But now as I'm getting a little bit older and more mature, I realize that there are things that will make me actually have a better day tomorrow. And I need to do those things. Like I recognize now that I actually need, when I'm finished working, I need half an hour of just don't ask me questions. Don't make me make decisions. Let me do something like read a book, bake some cookies, do some crochet. Like I seem to really resonate with the tactile type activities.
I'm the same, but you know why? Because we are that doer type of personality. We can't even relax in doing nothing. We have to relax doing something. And my ex-husband used to say to me, do. That's all you do. And I'm like, I know.
You're a big pile of doo-doo.
Right. Do. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't not do something. And it drove him crazy. But it's true. I'm the most productive person ever because when I'm not working, I am working on something. But I, like you, Candace, I think it's good for your brain to knit or crochet. They say there's something about that. They even do it in treatment facilities. In my work days, I went to an anorexia, bulimia, mental health rehab center for girls. And one of the things they did was teach them to knit. Because when you're counting and the patterning, you're not thinking about other things. And it actually is good for whatever it is in our brain that we like, oxytocin or whatever.
I do the same thing as you guys. Like it's baking, it's crocheting. Now that I'm over here, it's more planting.
Gardening.
And just
gardening is wonderful for you.
transplanting, gardening, and then just going out there with the chickens. Someone goes, go sit down and do nothing. That would create anxiety for me. That would really create some anxiety. And I'd be like, why?
Because there's all these things that I should be doing, right? Yeah,
exactly.
It drives me nuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing we talked about that we also did, Peggy, you and I talked about this a long time ago, is journaling. A lot of people aren't aware, like pen to paper. I don't have a study or any stats.
A real kind of pen,
Yeah, but I do that every morning. It's pen to paper every single morning.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I had issues either with people or family members or whatever, I would write it down first, especially when I was mad. I would write it down so that I didn't later say things I didn't want to say. I got it out of my body. That's what I used to say. By writing it down, I'm getting it out of my body. I may never send it. I may never deal with it, but I'm no longer hosting it.
I do a lot of emails that way that start out very unprofessional and angry.
It's so funny. So in the morning, the journaling is letting everything out, purging everything that's in the head to get it out that's affecting me to be able to go start. And then the email piece, Candace, what was scary was me writing it, but then I accidentally send it. So I always write my name on the top in the to bar, and then I start typing everything. And then it's like, okay, even if I do it by accident, it just comes to me and I'm still safe. And then you read it like 5 minutes later. What the hell was I thinking? Thank God. This never went anywhere. because today it doesn't mean anything, but yesterday for some reason it really, really hit me the wrong way,
That speaks to that 24-hour rule, right? I know when our kids were in hockey, they used to say, just hold it for 24 hours before you go raging at the coach. And 24 hours later, it was a very different picture, and the emotion had, settled down, and the common sense had kicked in, and your child was still happy as he was yesterday. So whatever.
It's so funny. We're using a lot of the same kind of methods without really knowing what other mechanisms or what other, I guess this is called coping.
Coping, yeah.
I think for me, my children have diagnosed me as ADHD. I'm going to say every entrepreneur has some form of it, but
ADHD.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm with you.
I don't like
think so.
labels.
I think
I
we
don't
have
like labels, but they also told me that I'm the most adjusted ADHD they've ever seen, because in order for me to live with myself, I had to put whatever system in place that worked. And again, apology to my children for all the things I forgot when you were very young, but I hadn't figured myself out yet. Okay. So later in life, I figured out I had to write things down to remember them. I couldn't just hear them, and I couldn't have them in a computer. I needed to write it down, because once I wrote it down, I remembered it. And I also use reminders and everything. Like if I have to pick up something at the store, I put a thing in my calendar. I remind myself all the time. And that has helped me a lot. So rather than focusing on the fact that I have a different brain, I found ways to manage myself so that I didn't get the resulting anxiety from always missing something, for always forgetting something, for all those things. And I found it became a strength. I'm very organized because I had to be.
I use the same coping mechanism. My calendar, somebody looks at my calendar and they're like, oh my God. But
same thing. It was funny. My daughter accidentally saw my calendar. She's like, you cannot do 400 hours in 1 month. That is impossible. And I'm like, no, watch me. It can work. And it's all about being organized. And sometimes you have heavier times, and it's just seasons, right? It's seasons. And so because I understand that, it's okay. But someone else looking at it would, like she did, she just freaked out. She's like, this is what just happened. I can't believe, like, what's going on? And it was like, it's part of the season. It's okay. Sometimes it's me just walking out, like you said, after your day, or sometimes for me, it's just after a meeting, because the meetings that we have are pretty high stress meetings with CEOs and their issues and their stressors. And so I get off the phone and I walk out into the deck. And all I do is just sit down and look out, and you just look at the trees. You look at the land, you look at the flowers, and, it sounds maybe funny, but
I think it's true,
it
though.
is really, really restful.
You know what they say, that if there's an employee that has a window that looks into trees, into nature, that they have better mental health than someone who is in an office and looks out at concrete or doesn't look out at all.
Yeah, I would have to agree, because after I do that, just 5 minutes, I'm good and somehow feel recharged, and I can just go back in and start all over. That's a big thing.
Candice, in your business with seasonal work like you have as a CPA, you must really notice in the people you work with varying degrees of mental health during tax season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you know what? I think as a team, you get kind of coping mechanisms too. Like you understand, like, I don't know, the last week of April, like you could just feel the tension. I work remotely, and I could feel the tension in the office just through the communication. And we have a daily huddle, and you could just tell people are like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so, the management team were like, okay, I don't know why everybody's freaking out, because we're actually on target. We're actually ahead of target. Like, everything's good, right? And I'm like, well, maybe we just need to tell them that, maybe they just need to hear everything's okay. So it's, I feel that we have a really good team. So we have kind of, I don't know, a team coping mechanism, I guess, is just to understand that it's a little bit stressful and everybody's a little bit more patient, and it's a hard time. We have a physical fitness policy as part of our regular policy. So we encourage them to go for a walk 3 days a week throughout the year. But during tax season, we expand that to every day. So everybody is encouraged to go for a 20-minute walk after lunch, paid time. It doesn't come out of their break time. Go for a walk.
That's forward thinking.
I think you hit on something else, though, Candice, when you said patience. I think that's really important in this fast-paced world. When someone says something, when they actually have the courage to say something about either how they're feeling or concerns. I find lately that more people are willing to just stop talking, take a deep breath, and wait and listen, which never really happened before. Before it was like, okay, well, deal with it. Let's move on. We have work to get done. But now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's stop and acknowledge that. I don't know. Have you guys been feeling that a little more?
Definitely, this is a different cultural feeling than when I started working. I'm going to remind everyone that I'm the old one on the podcast. And, my career now is over 30 years old. And it was not like this in those days. In fact, women having children, oh my gosh, really? You have a family to go home to. You have other concerns besides what's on your desk and what you need to be doing to make us money. Yeah, very different world now. Very good, though.
I like the change. I do like the change. Like that wellness policy, like over the last, I would say 5 years, we've had a definite focus on not just getting people in the office to do the work, but make sure that it's a good experience and that, we're treating people well and things like that. So I think it does make a difference. And I do think that we listen more than we used to.
I think that's very forward thinking, Candace, especially in the profession that you're in. It wasn't very long ago that I was in one of the big fours, and the value of people, it just, in my opinion, was lacking. I'm really proud of your company for the steps you've taken because it's just not normal in your profession. It really isn't. And it makes a difference. People are a resource. They're a valuable resource. And I think more and more, they're a more valuable resource because of the lack of professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we want to keep our people and we want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. And so you can't do all the typical things that typical accounting firms do. You have to do it differently. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but you're actually not just saying it. So working in, awesome corporate finance land, they talked a lot. They talked a lot about all these awesome benefits, but did you have time to use them or take them or do anything? And did you actually, I think in the past, like really seriously, only in the past year and a half or 2 years has this actually come out to where people are actually sharing and talking and discussing without or with less fear of stigma, with less fear of saying, oh no, did you actually say probably all entrepreneurs have ADHD? Peggy, did you say that out loud? And did we actually maybe agree with that? I mean, that's, I don't know, faux pas, is that bad? And so we couldn't say that before. I think the other word that comes to mind that's happening now is compassion. Or it was maybe lack of patience or no time or don't want to hear it. But now, as we get older, like you're saying, Peggy, it is compassion.
I think compassion is part of a workplace now where it never used to have a place in the workplace. So I think that's a positive thing. And I think it's a new thing. I think before employees were just numbers. Well, that's not true of every company, but I think it was less about the people and more about the profits. And I think that we've seen a shift in that, and that's a very good shift. And in order to shift, there has to be compassion. You have to treat your people with dignity and compassion, and they're a great resource. They make you money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Half of it, though, is us ourselves, stepping forward to say, I think I'm valuable. Maybe not getting to the place of saying I am valuable or, but actually being able to step forward now and saying that. And I find the younger generation, as I'm meeting or learning or mentoring them, they're okay. They're great at being able to say all of this. Whereas even today, I still have trouble saying that.
But I bet you taught your kids to be able to think that about themselves. So we did something right.
Of course, 100%. Do we issue another apology to them? We haven't done it for 5 minutes.
It's all good.
But at the end of the day, I think that, like you said earlier, Candace, like talking about this is just the step one and probably the best step that we could ever take. And as you said earlier, Peggy, we are not in any way, shape, or form experts on the academic side, but we're probably doctorates in the living it side. We've gone through it. So we can speak to that part. We obviously would encourage everyone to connect with your network or support network I think there's two pieces. One, should you feel maybe something's a little bit stronger than other days. But also if you see someone that you can feel or hear something, before we kind of would shy away. But now I think it's important to say, hey, I really, really, really do, because there's just so much happening. And the question of, hi, how are you? That's just, you expect good, thanks, bye, or good, thanks, how are you? And I think that opening question needs to be a little bit stronger, and we need to take a pause if we're going to ask that, right?
So I think we're actually coming to the end of our time today. Did you guys want to add one last thought or something that resonated with you before we wrap it up?
Sure, let's do that. Okay, I'll start. I just want everyone to understand that you're not alone, that it happens to all of us. And if you're experiencing something, there are resources out there. There's friends, there's people, there's family, but also understand yourself and give yourself a break.
I'm actually going to bring to people's attention the Canadian Mental Health Association. Their website is cmha.ca, and they have all sorts of resources about mental health, not necessarily mental illness, although I'm sure that's there too, but about the concept of mental health and, stewarding your own mental health. And they have activities and, give some education. So if you're looking for more resources, I encourage you to go and check out their website.
And I guess I'll finish off with my takeaway is it's okay to talk about it. It's okay. And, a simple method is just take a deep breath if you need to. That's just the easiest, perhaps, thing that we can do. But, I'm being really, really serious, all joking aside. If there is something happening, I guarantee your friends and family will want to say hi, and you're not alone. And then I guess just as we get ready to wrap up, mental health, this is a nice quote that I heard. It's not a destination, but it's a journey, and a journey that we embark on together. So let's keep continuing this dialogue. Let's support one another along the way. There's always more to learn, more to share, more to understand. And thank you for joining us today. On behalf of Serenity Now for Entrepreneurs, Candace, Peggy, and myself, Rita, we hope that today's episode has provided you with a deeper understanding of supporting our mental health and well-being, both at work and at home. And please share this episode with entrepreneurs that you know. And as always, we hope this episode has given you some serenity now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and picked up some good tips and best practices that would benefit your entrepreneurial journey. Remember, none of the content in this podcast should be relied upon as standard legal or business advice. Always consult a professional for your specific business. You may know someone who could benefit from this podcast. Please share it with your business community, and perhaps it can give an entrepreneur you know some serenity now.